it's Nia. I am so excited to be here today. Today we're going to talk about boundaries. Dum 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 dum. This one is a big one, right? Boundaries. Okay. Whew. Buckle up, guys, and get ready. Because this is definitely charting into some uncomfortable territory for me personally and for others. Um, and I'll just start off with, boundaries are something that are important for everyone to have. They're not necessarily for other people. Boundaries are for and about you. They're about, you know, um, letting other people know what you're willing to put up with and um, letting them know what your expectations are, what your comfort levels are. It has everything to do with you. Boundaries are not put in place to control other people. They're not a power play in any means. It's all about communicating to others, what you're willing to deal with. And then if that on their end, they're not doing the parts that you're comfortable with or whatever you have set a boundary around, then what you're going to do as a result of that. And again, that goes back to you. So I feel like there's this common misconception that boundaries are, well, there's a few things, right? In our society in general, when women especially have strong boundaries, there's this negative connotation that goes along with it, right? Women who have really clear and strong boundaries, who also enforce those boundaries, are often looked at in a negative way. They're bossy, they're controlling, they might be considered bitchy or just difficult. And it speaks to just the way, what a great subject to explore. Yes, this is definitely one conversation that needs to be had, especially woman to woman. Because again, in our society, a lot of times we are the caregivers, just kind of by nature, just because we're women, we're always kind of assigned this caregiving role. And there's a lot that goes into that, right? There's a lot of sacrifices that need to be made, or that are perceived that need to be made on our part. And if we don't want to, um, you know, continue in that caregiving role, or we see ourselves outside of that and we're wanting to charter into some other territories, there's often a lot of pushback because people aren't comfortable with women standing up and saying, no, I want blank, or I don't want blank, or this is what I'm doing and this is how I'm going to do it. And if it doesn't happen like this, then blank. People have a hard time really understanding that and hearing that. But as you are, you know, in control of your time, in control of your money, in control of your energy, it's definitely important to also be in control of the things that you're going to, um, you know, what you're going to take, what you're not going to take, what you're going to stand for, and be able to comfortably be in control of that through enforcing boundaries, making boundaries for your children, making boundaries for your family, making boundaries for other people around you, making boundaries and enforcing them with your partner. So it's just, it's a difficult, it's a slippery slope. It's a difficult thing to come to terms with for people. It's a difficult thing to actually, exercise, and it's also difficult sometimes for other people to respect and see your boundaries and acknowledge them and be okay with them, because a lot of times people don't want to be okay with the boundaries you set. So you know, this is something that it took a long time for me to get to. I had many years of not having boundaries. And as a result of that, I had experiences that were very challenging. And it was like because I wasn't good at setting boundaries, or if I was setting boundaries, I wasn't good at enforcing them. It was like I was falling deeper into a hole, falling deeper into a hole of dissatisfaction. I tend to be a people pleaser for whatever reason. That's just kind of like the type of personality I have. And people pleasing is kind of like the opposite of, enforcing and setting boundaries. And so when I began to do that, one, it was a little bit difficult for me to stand in that place and to, say, what, this is what I'm doing, or this is what I'm not doing, and that's it. And if this happens, then these are the consequences. um, but it's just necessary, especially as I have transitioned into, operating my own business. It's important for me to have very clear boundaries, because I need to set an expectation for my clients, and I also need to set expectations for my household. I can't, I believe in a collaborative housekeeping environment, right? No one should be completely responsible for upkeeping the house. It's a collaborative effort. And with that comes, boundaries that need to be enforced. I can't, grow my business and be successful if I'm always picking up after the kids, making sure the dishes are clean, sweeping the floors, doing the gardening, taking out the trash, cleaning the bathrooms, both of them, even bathrooms I don't use. There's no way that the business that will ultimately benefit the family will grow and develop if I'm solely responsible for the household duties. It has to be collaborative, because what I'm working on in this business is ultimately going to benefit everyone here. And so for us to get there together, it has to be collaborative. We have to work together. And, there have to be boundaries for myself, because I need you to know where I draw the line. So if you want to eat in all parts of the house and you want to leave your dishes there, then there needs to be a boundary in place, because I shouldn't walk into a room and get into my feelings because I'm seeing all kind of dishes that are dirty, that are in a place where I don't believe they belong, right? Like, that is not my problem. If you choose to have dishes in the house in rooms that they don't belong in, well, that's on you. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring all those dishes together so that, it's clear that this whole zone of dish that shouldn't be here needs to go into the respected dish area. I don't need to say anything. There's no trouble that's happening, but it's going to be clear to you. And I'm not going to be passive aggressive about it, because I think that, when you don't have boundaries and you're doing things, there's like this like passive aggressive thing that you do. Like, I could be, collecting dishes and like banging them up, or I could be sighing all hard when I collect these dishes. No, I'm just going to put them all together and allow you to see them, because maybe you don't see them in the room when they're scattered and they're on the desk and they're in the bookshelf and they're on the floor. But if I bring them all together and it's clear that this is what it is, then that will, ring alarms for you, and then that'll allow you to deal with the dishes that you need to deal with. And that takes the pressure off of me now. That is, not my issue now. So, I can't tell you how important and how much progress I've made personally just by setting and enforcing boundaries. Because the thing about boundaries is, it's not just about setting them; it's also about enforcing them. Because if you set a boundary and then you let it go, you don't enforce it, then that says to the other person that, your no, right? Your boundary is a possible maybe. It's not, your no is no longer a no. if you don't set your boundary and if you don't enforce it, if you really just don't enforce it. Your no now is kind of like, it's not so much of a no, right? And, it's important for you to have that follow through. You've got to not only set it, you've got to stand firm in it and also enforce that. Resonating so much with people. Right, right, yes. And it's like, at the end of the day, this is my life, right? This is my bank account. This is my time. Why am I so busy pleasing people? Because when it's all said and done, I have to look back and reflect on why my account is so low, or why my time was spent in ways that I don't, that didn't serve me. And it's like, the thing about boundaries is, when you set boundaries, you can no longer really blame people for the crap that's happening in your life. It now becomes your responsibility, your issue, right? Because you haven't really, um, you can blame other people when you haven't set the boundary, because it's just, when you don't have the boundaries set, it puts you in that kind of victim place. You're sitting in a position of, this is happening to me and look what happened and woe is me. No. When you put the boundaries up and you set these boundaries and you stand in them, you are now in the driver's seat. You are the driver in your life train, right? You are no longer a passenger. And why would you want to be a passenger in your own life, right? You're the driver of you're the conductor of your own vehicle. So that boundary thing really puts you in the driver's seat. It really removes that blaming other people, right? It's your responsibility now. It comes back to you. You determine how people are going to treat you, what the circumstances are going to be, and what the this was the opposite of circumstances, what the like ramifications are going to be if those things aren't set. And it's very empowering. Being in a place where you're setting boundaries for yourself is being in a place of empowerment, of self-empowerment. It really gives you that power. When you don't have boundaries, that power is being taken from you. But when you are the boundary setter and you are enforcing these boundaries, it's giving you back that power. And that power is what is necessary as you're growing and building to be successful, period, right? It brings me to this kind of thought, this story that, not story, but this thing that happened to me. So I'm at Trader Joe's once, and this was right around the time I live in California. So there was like this big transition from like chip readers. They started, cards started, the register started having a thing where the card readers have to read chips now. And so in that transitional period, in all retailers, it took a little more time for the credit cards to process. And so, where it seemed like it should go faster, or it should, be a little smoother, there was kind of like this little lag time. And so I'm at the register, and it's this time where, the registers are changing over to chip readers. And so there's a guy behind me, a cis white male. And the way I imagine him, I don't know if this was true in his life, but I imagined him as some type of executive. It was kind of like an older white guy. But his energy, I'm at the register, I've got my card in, it's reading my card, it's taking a little longer, but there's nothing I can do about it. It isn't my fault. I have no control over it. But he's giving me this like really impatient energy. I'm seeing out of my peripheral vision him shifting his weight. I'm hearing him sigh. He's holding his groceries, and he's kind of like, putting out this energy to me. And it's like, the thing about it is, when people give you shit, right? You don't have to take the shit they're giving you. They can dish it out, but you don't have to take it. And as much as I was trying to ignore this man, and he was already kind of, pushing my buttons anyway, just because it was like, I already feel a certain type of way about this. I decided that, I'm going to give him back that energy. I don't deserve this, what he's putting out to me. There's nothing that I'm doing that is wrong. Because the truth is, there were 9 other registers that were open. And if he wanted to, in his hurry, if he wanted to go faster, he had a choice. He had a choice to either wait or move on and go somewhere else. In fact, he had a handful of groceries, so he was the perfect candidate for the 12 aisle or 12 item or less line. But he was in the main line. But he's in the main line giving me this like hurried, I'm uncomfortable, I'm in a hurry energy that I was trying to block, but it was just permeating. It was coming through. So I decided that, no, I'm not going to take this. I'm not going to own this. And in fact, I'm going to put a mirror up to you, and I'm going to give all that energy back to you. So, I'm interacting with the guy at the register. He's telling me it'll be a second. The chip is, processing. And I understand, because at the time I worked in retail. So I'm like, I get this. I know how it is. I understand. So what I did was I turned to that guy and I gave him the uncomfortable stare. Yes, you know it. It's an uncomfortable stare. It's the stare that lasts longer than your comfort level. And so then it starts becoming uncomfortable. So I gave him the uncomfortable stare. Meanwhile, the person at the cash register is like not knowing what to do now. He's feeling the uncomfortable stare and he's kind of scrambling and bumbling, but he doesn't say anything. But I could just hear him kind of shuffling around as I'm giving dude the uncomfortable stare. And so I'm looking at him. He says nothing to me. He feels that energy. I didn't have to say anything. And in fact, I didn't say anything. But I gave him back everything he was giving me. And I just left it there. And even though the person at the register was now trying to get my attention because now the machine is working, I was like, no, this is what he deserves. I'm going to give it back to him, and we're all going to wait. Everybody in this line is going to wait, right? And it was maybe 30 seconds, right? It wasn't crazy. I wasn't doing anything crazy, but it was just like, I don't have to feel this. And you're not going to make me feel some type of way, because maybe in your life, you're an executive, and maybe in your life, you boss people like me around, and you're in a hurry, and you got these things, and you're doing this. That does not have anything to do with me. I'm here. I get to be here because I'm spending my money just like you. I have planned my day accordingly, so I'm not rushing. So I don't have to feel your hurried energy because of whatever you got going on. And then I politely said whatever I needed to say to the guy at the cash register when I came back. And he kind of gave that chuckle of nervous relief. The guy at the cashier kind of chuckled, a nervous release, and I bid him have a great day. Thank you so much. And, I understand the machines take a little long, and, went on my way. And it was just like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I felt so empowered. It was like a note to myself. It was like I made myself a mental note. Like, you don't have to feel certain things from people, and there are things that you can do. You don't have to get upset. You don't have to yell. Just from simply being quiet and not moving and just kind of removing yourself from the situation and that non-reaction, is so powerful because everyone who was in my little vicinity felt that. And it resonated. And it was just like, that was the best thing that I could have done. Because had I not done something in that moment, I would have left Trader Joe's feeling like, why was that dude looking at me? And what did he think that I could do? And why did he make me feel this way? And I would have continued on in these like feelings of like I did something wrong, when the truth is I did nothing wrong. He was just going through his moments, which is fine. He can have his moments, but I don't need to feel your moments. You need to keep your moments within yourself. And so it was just like, I'm done. It's over. I did what I needed to do and I'm moving forward. And it was just like, okay, now I know that that's a card that I could pull, in my life if I need to pull that card. But, it took some, time for me to even get to that space, right? Because when you're people pleasing, you're not thinking, well, what's best for me? Well, what do I need to do? Well, what do I want, right? You're thinking about everybody else. And so it's like, maybe if there was a different version of me, then I would have been saying something to him or excusing how long it took. And it's like, I don't have to own that, right? Nor should I. That's not my issue. That's your issue. So yeah, it's like I said, it's just an empowering moment when you're able to have a boundary and really enforce that boundary. And you know that you're worthy of, the boundaries that you create. You get to say what, your boundaries are. And you get to benefit from those boundaries. And sometimes with the creating of the boundaries, there are some hard conversations that go along with that, right? Because sometimes situations come up where you have to have these kind of difficult conversations because it's like, you know what? I'm enforcing this boundary and therefore this is going to be the result of that. And, it puts you in a space where you don't necessarily want to have certain conversations, but it's like, with the hard conversations, 9 times out of 10, it's a lot worse in your mind when you're thinking about it than it is when you're actually going through it. You know what I'm saying? So there's that piece of it, but sometimes it's just necessary, right? In order for me to live in my worthiness, in the best light I can lead for myself, sometimes I will have to have these uncomfortable conversations. And that's okay. Because again, my boundaries is not about me controlling you. And it's not about me, bossing you around or making you feel like, I'm giving you a hard time. It's just about, making sure that I'm getting what I want, right? My desires are being met because my desires are just important as everyone else's desires. In fact, they're most important, right? Because it's my life. So the desires that I have are most important. It has nothing to do with being selfish. I'm not being selfish, right? Because we're caregivers, we should be living this like selfless life. And it's like, not necessarily, right? I mean, if you choose to be a caregiver, then, great. That's awesome. But maybe you've made other choices, right? Maybe you want to be the breadwinner. Maybe you want to have $1 million business. Maybe you want to be a boss. It's different for everyone. And if you do have those desires and you need to step out of that caregiving role into a different role, that's okay. And you shouldn't be made to feel like you're difficult or, there's something the matter with you. No. I'm a human. I get to say what I want. I get to stand firm in my desires. Because if you were dating someone and you had certain expectations and you had certain boundaries, you would have no problem letting that person you're dating know what your boundaries are. Likewise, in any other situation or scenario in your life, right? I was a manager in my last job or my last career. I had no problem setting boundaries for the girls at work. None at all. Actually, it was like I was able to speak to the girls and let them know what I needed and be firm, but yet be loving at the same time, and really inspire these women to do well and show up and in their best in the retail space. Because a lot of times when you work retail, people think, well, it's a joke and it's not a real career. And no, selling, there is an art to selling. You can take this selling that you're doing and put it into different aspects of your life and make lots of money doing it, because trust me, any and every name out there needs a salesperson, a good salesperson. So don't think that because you're working here and you're selling that this is just the job that you're going to do in between college before you get to the real job. No, this could be a real job if you take it really serious. So I had no problem setting the boundaries at work. But then I get home and all of a sudden the boundaries are out the window. I can't set a boundary and hold it to save my life. So I've got my kids who are, running all over me and doing what they want to do and acting a fool. And then, at the time, my partner is doing what he wants to do and acting all crazy and gaslighting me and all this. My world at home is completely chaotic. I get setting the boundaries at work, but for whatever reason in my personal life, I can't do that. And as a result of that hole that I said it feels like you're falling into, I was sinking into a deep, dark hole. And it took me years to get out of that. Well, the very beginning of getting out of that, hole that I was sinking into in my personal life was just simply setting those boundaries and sticking to them, making them known to my family, understanding that I need to have these boundaries. I need to set make my desires be known, and there needs to be consequences if they, can't respect my boundary. And once that happened, it was just like all of a sudden, life is just better. Now I'm growing. Now I'm soaring. Now my bank account is a lot better than it had been because I'm able. It's so funny how setting boundaries in my personal life unlocked all these other things that you have no idea that there's a remote connection. But it just speaks to that, understanding that you're worthy, right? Once you start understanding how worthy you are, it's like it's just like day and night. It's like all of a sudden, you're standing up for things and you're stepping into your power and you feel empowered and people respect you more, right? You get more respect. So I'm sure there's so many different areas of boundaries that I haven't even tapped into, because let me tell you, honey, this conversation could go on and on forever, because we all experience on different levels in different aspects of our life. Thank you for those hearts. Some boundaries that need to be set in place, or that, haven't been respected, and it goes on and on forever. But what I want to leave you with today is just having the conversation, right? Letting you know that you're not doing yourself, you're doing yourself a disservice if you're not setting boundaries for for yourself, and setting them and letting the people around you, your loved ones, your coworkers, your students, your clients, if you don't set that up, you're doing yourself a great disservice. And it's a disservice for you, a great disservice, but it's also kind of a disservice for them, because then it allows them to set the proper expectations. And as you know, it's about both parties, right? It's about their expectations as well as yours, and it allows the platform for everybody to set things accordingly. So everything is kind of congruent and meeting up, and so we're all kind of on the right page at the right place, right? Because then you're able to say, okay, you're not, if it's a client, you're able to say, I'm not the best person for you, right? Because it's clear, it's all there. There's no mystery. It takes the mystery out of it. everybody isn't a good fit for you, nor should they be, right? And you may have a suggestion to who is a better fit, but you don't have to be the right fit for everybody. So boundaries, right? Yes. Day 13 of my Rise Up Challenge. Check. Done. Thank you, Kathy, for joining me. Thank you, Miss Calumet. Thank you for those compliments. I really appreciate you tuning in today. Enjoy your Tuesday. Thank you again for just showing up and giving me love. I love that. It continues to give me energy and excitement to bring this information to you. And I will see you again tomorrow. Thank you, guys.